Tarot Talk Show, only on the Parrot Encounters Network. I'm your host, Rebecca Brown. It's a beautiful Monday evening here in the hills of Northern California. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Last week's show with mystic and teacher Heather Mandel, creator of the Zirkus Oracle, is now up and archived for your viewing pleasure, along with all of our shows, including our blog talk radio stuff. It's all up there on thetarottalk.com. So check it out. We had a great discussion on Kabbalah and the Tarot. And Heather is just one of those people who, when you're done talking to them, you feel so much better about life in general. So we just love her. And be sure to hop on over to our Facebook page and give it a like to keep up with the latest news and upcoming shows. And you know my sidekick is in the Tarot house with me tonight. He's my friend, my motivator, my moon in Libra, the stabilizing force to my crazy. He's everything to me. Tarot Tim is here. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Rebecca. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
It's been a crazy week, but really good, actually. You know.
Yeah. Well, I know I do the 5 of Wands for you with last show, and it was just drama all across the board. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. That's good. So I am so excited for tonight's show because we are discussing the stunning and much anticipated The Fountain Tarot, currently in its final campaign week on Kickstarter.com. A little while ago, I got sucked into the black hole that is Twitter, but this time I'm actually really glad that I did because I discovered all of these tweets about the Fountain Tarot, and I went to the site, fountaintarot.com. I checked out the campaign page on Kickstarter. I was absolutely blown away by this deck. I had to back it. I hope you do too. So joining us this evening is 1/3 of the Fountain Tarot team. She is a graphic designer, artist, creative chameleon, and designer of the Fountain Tarot, hailing from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado. Andi Todaro is here, everybody. Hey, Andy.
Hey, it's so nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me. I didn't actually know that you found out about us through Twitter. That's really cool. I love finding out how people have actually gotten hooked in.
Right, yeah, it's all over social media at this point. So yeah, it's just so great, and we will get into it. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. So drinking game alert, my special guest won't know it, but anytime anyone says this word, take a sip from your Ace of Cups and drink as though you're at a Pentacles court card wedding and it's an open bar. That would be fun, right? I think of all the court cards, the Pentacles would have the best wine, for sure.
Probably. Unfortunately, we don't have any. We have coins, but it would still be just as big of a party.
Oh, absolutely. That's for sure. So we have had the privilege of having multiple artists on the show, and they are always so much fun to talk with. And thank God for the artists or readers like myself. We would be reduced to working with our own creations. So I would be reading stick figures and finger paint, basically. So, in fact, that's my next project. The Thumbprint Tarot is coming your way.
I'll back.
But it's just people who are passionate about tarot. You know, we value artists and what they really give to the language and system of tarot. And I know I'm always in awe of the artists and just how they create something out of nothing at all. So they really are the magicians in the tarot, I think. So it's always exciting to sit down with them and have a talk. And for you especially, Annie, this is like a treat for me because it's not every day I get to sit down and talk with a fellow Coloradan. So I am super excited.
You actually grew up in Aurora. Where are you bouts from?
I grew up in Monument, Colorado. Yeah, halfway between Denver and the Springs, and I'm a CU alumni. I love Colorado. I miss Colorado. Yeah, so yeah, I think I read that somewhere. And then I went to fact check, and then I couldn't find it again. So I'm glad that you, brought that up. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. To sit down with a fellow Coloradan. So cool. Andy, tell us about yourself, your work, your art.
It's a long story. I'll keep it as brief as possible. But CU, that's a super good place to start. How about? I went to school for advertising at CU Boulder, and it was a bit lacking, I say, after I got out of school because advertising even though it combines visual things with how people work, it sort of does it in this kind of skeezy way. I don't know. It makes you feel like you're lacking something in order to sell you something. And so I ended up starting my own business. I've always been into science and biology and digging things up in the yard and playing, doing fantasy games with my brother. And so the art that came, the reason that I got into art eventually was a lot about making the intangible tangible, ways of making it, making something visual to explain an idea. So that's specifically where I come from in art, and graphic design is a nice extension of that. But it's really so that I have an idea and I would say, I need to build this, or I want to show this to somebody, and art's is the best way to do that. So I mainly work for private schools in my business, among other things, but because I think that educating our kids is really important for, say, the next thing. Then our next generation of children is the society that we live in. So a lot of the thinking that I have around the design that I'm doing, or what I'm becoming involved in, is how do we make this world a better place? And that's why I'm so stoked about Kickstarter. And I mean, the internet, the fact that we're in 4 time zones right now is so cool, is because the technology has allowed us to take a life-changing idea and publish it in 5 seconds. So I'm so jazzed right now about the possibility that any person, no matter where they're from, if they have an internet connection, I know that's still like a barrier for entry, but that you can get those ideas out there. So I guess mainly about me. I guess I could add the creative chameleon. I thought that was really neat. I hope that you put that on there.
That I put in your bio, right? That you're the creative chameleon. I was noticing in your bio on the tarot.com. That's creative chameleon. So you kind of do it all, I would imagine. I
try to do it all. The fine art, I've had 5 solo shows in fine art, and I'm not the artist of the Fountain Tarot. That's Jonathan Size, and the writer of the Fountain is Jason Gruhl. But as an artist, I do a lot of geometry, and I investigate the relationships between math and science. So like frequencies of light versus frequencies of color versus frequencies of sound, and make these drawing machines. Like, it's a bunch of heady stuff, and there's a lot of course, super gray area, but my interest runs the gamut, from crocheting to modeling to photography to writing poetry to writing music. So, of course, I'm going to try and help make a tarot deck.
Right, and that's what I love about what you blend the graphic design with art, and it all works together. And I think that's so great, because I would imagine graphic design is very precise, right? Like you have there's a precision to it, whereas the art is very intuitive. And when you combine the two, it's this very nice swords and cups energy, and it works together. And we've talked before on the show how the swords and the cups work together, and one is the antidote to the other, and it's this really nice blend. So I think that's super exciting. Yeah. Well, and the question I always ask each guest is, and a lot of the guests that we have are first and foremost readers who dabble in art, but for the artists that come on who are also readers, the question gets twisted a little bit. So in one word, what lies at your core as a reader is the question, but as you're an artist, what lies at your core as an artist? So in one word.
In one word, it's curiosity. And I chose that word because I think it encapsulates that, driving force. What is the next thing that I can dig my hands into and like feel the whole thing with my whole spirit? I'd say that when I look at a radio or a computer, or even like a upholstered chair, I'm so curious to know what was all in there? Like, how is that working? And those are just the material things. And of course, it gets more abstract when you're talking about philosophical concepts. And you have to go a lot deeper and go to a few different places. It's not as physical, but the curiosity is what drives the investigation. Yeah. What? How does it work? Why do it that way? How can it be done better? How are they connected? There's an interconnectedness, and I would say in the artwork and the design that I really appreciate, and that's probably why the geometry comes up so much.
Well, and looking through your cards, what I loved was you obviously did the research, and while the cards are completely new and beautifully so, you honored the tradition as well. So someone who's from a very traditional tarot background can look at those cards and get the traditional meanings, but there's also, it took it to another level, I think.
In the early conversations, and this has been a year-long process so far, and it's not over with at all, because a lot of the decisions are certainly dictated by how much interest there was, and I'm not that there isn't interest, but now we can quantify that in the number of comments and lovely greetings, and we've had interest from people. We have 292 backers. We've had offers in like 11 countries, 26 states in the United States. I mean, there is an international interest, and it's from people who are familiar with the tarot, that have been reading for 20, 30, 40 years, and from people who weren't familiar at all. And that tells me we've done something really right. And from the beginning, that's what we set out to do. I mean, I can tell you the whole story. I would love to tell you the whole story. Jonathan Size is a longtime friend of mine. We've known each other for 10 years. And I had told him, say, 5 years ago, you should do a tarot deck. That would be really cool. And he was like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm not that interested in that. But that is kind of a cool idea. And it was at the same time that I was getting into it, because I grew up in a fairly religious family. My mother had told me this totally scary story about my uncle seeing apparitions in his living room while he was doing tarot. And so I didn't touch the thing until I was probably, 20 years old, and I need a new vocabulary for, dissecting this chaotic world. And so a friend of mine, it's always been really important for me to be an Aquarian too. I am an Aquarian through and through, and all of my friends are Aquarians. So I was holding the Aquarian tarot in my hands as a friend of mine, and I said, I have to have this. I love this art. I have to have this in my life. And at that moment, it became this incredibly important symbol for a little bit of liberation, and then in self-challenge, and saying you're going to spend time with yourself every day in reflection and introspection, and have this this energy feedback. And so when I said to Jonathan, you should do this, and he then goes, I mean, he's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy. You've seen his artwork. He's amazing. Every time he would go off on one of these amazing trips, which was really like, oh my God, I have to leave my life right now. I have to go to another country and do an amazing, inspired group of paintings. And every time he would come back, he went to Jamaica, and he ended up doing these really angry wave paintings for about a year after he came back, because he almost drowned in the ocean. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he went and lived in Greece, and they're these like super, super luscious, geometric, crystalline drops. And then he was in Paris, and they were these super classic and edgy and regal portraits. And then he was in Denver, and these really boxy, colorful, sculptural elements. And at every single juncture, he'd come to me and say, Andi, before I go off on this crazy trip, can you do me a favor and do a tarot reading? And I would say, yeah. So we would sit down on my bed or in my little apartment, and we would have this special little moment, and I would sit there with my book, because I'm certainly not an expert. None of us are yet. Still, you know, I mean, we've only been on this trip still as long as it seems. It's only been a year. And so I would do this, and every time it would say, you know, go and live your life. Go do this thing. It's going to be challenging, but it's going to be amazing. And so when he came back to me, it's been now more than a year ago, and said, I want to do this. I want to make a tarot deck, and I think we need to work together on it. And I said, well, we need a third person. And that brings me to Jason, who's responsible for doing, I mean, he's the list maker. The man keeps things straight. He is so good at it. It's amazing. I mean, the getting in contact with people around the world, he did all of our initial research, him and Jonathan together in Mexico, which was mainly based on the Visconti deck. But then there was also elements, I mean, we had, 20 decks out on the table, and we're comparing, and we're saying, this is what has to be in there, this is what kind of has to be in there, this is how we could represent it differently, what's more contemporary. But he started the school, the quintessential school for kids with autism spectrum disorders in Denver, Colorado, which has really set the standard nationwide 10 years ago. So that's the kind of man, I mean, if you can make lists and you can interface with all these different kinds of people, and you can do this in-depth research, and you can write, I mean, you are the secret weapon in all of this. Like, I need to pat Jason so much on the back, because the paintings are beautiful, and so is the design, but Jason is that glue. And his empathy and, say, global understanding of the way that humans work, and because of running that school, is what allowed him to, say, have this omniscience to write the booklet from a place of that universal understanding. So we weren't counting anybody out. And I think that's, say, I don't want to ever put down another tarot card or tarot deck, ever. But what I think what has been missing, and this is just in my personal opinion, is that one that's the contemporary bridge. Like, it's encapsulating, where it's timeless. We wanted something timeless, global, and it wasn't themed, the new standard that was so beautiful that it could not be denied, and so quality that it was going to be around for 100 years. So I know I just went on a super long rant there, but
no, and I'm glad that you elaborated on the Fountain Tarot team, because I was going to ask you how that came to be, the three of you, because when I was looking at just on your Kickstarter page with the video and the pictures where the three of you are together, it feels very Three of Cups to me. Like, you can sense this bond that the three of you have, and the Three of Cups is a community group's card, but with its Mercury and Cancer association, it's so much deeper than that. It's like, these are the deep bonds we have with the people in our lives that are like family. We know these people, they feel like home to us, and you really get that sense when looking at the three of you as a team, and then looking at what you're producing is very amazing. So yeah, I'm glad that you elaborated on how you know each other and how this kind of came to be. But yeah, let's talk about the deck, because I agree it's very special, and it is different, and I think that for me and for many people, it's resonating on a deep level. Like, I think for me, I haven't felt a deck hasn't resonated with me on this deep level in a long time. In fact, it's probably the Thoth Tarot when I saw it for the first time. I think it's something similar to that. And then people are definitely responding to it. And the deck has soul. It's so alive. And it's so real. And when something's real, like, people can sense it. And it's absolutely beautiful. And it's timeless, like you had mentioned, but effortless in a way, which must sound kind of silly to you, because I'm sure this keeps you take it and hate. But, it's the hardest thing in the world, I would imagine, to make something look so easy. And I feel like that's what the three of you have managed to do with the Fountain Tarot. You in.
I appreciate that it looks effortless, and I think that's all three of us exercising our best spirit as painters, as designers, as writers, and is to say put the polish on it. After we've drug it through the mud for a year, and then we put the polish on it, and then we say, here it is, this like shiny gem. And we want, people to have it as part of their lives, but just the same, for it to just be an art object, I think that is sexy as hell, for a lack of a better idiomatic expression. But
yeah.
Not to say that it didn't. It's been really challenging for all of us, emotionally, and then Three of Cups. I appreciate you saying that. I think that's the secondary part of that, is that effortlessness. But at the beginning, it was our Six of Swords kind of became our motto, which was like, all three of us are so fiercely independent and have accomplished so much on our own, and we're all, really adept in the art, the creative, and the business savvy. But in order to take on a project this size, that it required asking for help. It required being with other people to go on that journey towards something better. And not that we were running away from anything bad, but just embracing the change, and just freedom in our very busy and very structured lives, to willingness to let it go. Like, hey, we're going to invite this thing in, which is probably going to take us on a totally wild ride, but we're all up for it. And the response has been so overwhelming that I know certainly that we've made the right decision.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's really touching people on a deep level, and on some level, they might not even know what they're responding to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like, the Thoth Tarot is much the same way. You don't know what you're responding to exactly, but you know that it's, something very, very deep and powerful. So, if you have not done so already, hop on over to fountaintarot.com with the amazing Fountain Tarot and offer your support of this deck now in its final campaign week on Kickstarter.com. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry, I had to plug that in.
I am going to say something about the deck thus far, what I've seen, because I did it, that I never thought I'd say about a deck.
Because he has a lot to say about everything.
I do. I love, and I think my favorite card so far is the Three of Swords. That is usually the worst card in any deck. It's a horrible card because you're dealing with all this angst and pain and stuff you've been carrying around. But to me, my take on what it was, because the heart now is like clear. It's like glass, a diamond or something.
Right.
And there's those icy peaks behind it. And it's taking the pain and the angst and all of this stuff and dealing with it in an intellectual way. And letting go of the pain and the anger and stuff, and using your mind to work through it. And it crystallizes it in such a perfect way that is going to help people so much when that comes up in a reading. So thank you very much.
You just gave me goosebumps. You just gave me goosebumps. Yeah, that's an interesting card, because the first time that I'd gotten to see it in person after Jonathan had painted it, he was like, I think it's too like Lily, too kitty with the heart and everything. And I said, no, it is capturing the essence of this card so well in this way that's grounded and fragile and strong. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I said, don't you dare touch that painting.
And you were definitely right. It spoke volumes to me, and it was actually, I had to stop and just kind of go into a little meditation and contemplate that card, and in my life that card. So that's the one that really grabbed me and spoke to me.
I so appreciate that. Well, on the whole, we've thought about every one of these cards, because I feel really similarly. You kind of go into a deck, and because of the conventions and just purely visually, you have a hard black line and this many colors, and all of the illustration is similar. The character is kind of one being that morphs, sort of. And so I like the license that we've taken in that regard and said, okay, this is a different character in everyone. There's no, black line that has to go throughout. The individual, each one of them is, I'm sorry, I'm totally spacing. See, now I'm beer lipped. There's things that united throughout in terms of color and tonality and the darkness of each one of the cards, but we didn't want any one of those, because in a lot of the decks it's like one card gets left out, or 5, and it's the one you didn't spend that much time on. Mm-hmm. And in the backs too, like the back seems like an afterthought. You have all this gorgeous art on the front, and the back is like, what happened, in the booklets, like, what happened? Like, you have all this beautiful art, you put all this time into it, and what happened to the booklet, and what happened to the back, and what happened to the 3 of wands? And so we were like, every card has to just go there. Mm-hmm. There's not a point in doing this unless we spend the time to make every one of these something not only that the original oil painting that somebody wants to put on their wall, but also if there's a particular card that calls to you, that it's not the leftover one in the deck, And it's not just the major arcana that we're spending time on.
Yeah, I know that feeling when you get a new tarot deck and you can't wait to see your favorite card. Like, for me, it's always been the Moon and the Queen of Swords, Like, I can't wait to get to certain cards. Strength is another one. And then, you see it and you're like, no, it just doesn't get there. So I know what you mean, yeah. Yeah, and I feel that each one is really, again, pulling people in, and it's just gorgeous. So were certain cards more challenging to create than others, and were there some cards that were more challenging that might surprise us? I mean, I expect some of the challenging cards in the tarot to be a challenge, but was there one that you thought would maybe be easy, no problem, and it wasn't?
I don't know. I think that's more so a conversation with Jonathan, because, and I'm sorry he's not on the show. They said they've been working so hard with the Kickstarter. I mean, not that I haven't either, but I was like, I will take the interview. I will take care of this for you guys. I would love to do it. I would love to talk to fellow Coloradan and represent the deck from the perspective of a designer. In terms of the initial design, I can't really say which one was, harder or less hard to do. I would say the oil paintings, if you look at them, the more complicated ones probably took longer. And in terms of I would say, symbolism is really difficult. How best to represent something and say, hey, are we going to kick this one thing out that was in the Rider-Waite deck or not? Or is that important? Things like that. Or is there a better symbol or a better way of representing that? I think this is a really good segue into the fountain and why it's called the fountain. And we added a card to the major arcana.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would say that was the hardest one, because I think we've probably written an entire book on its own about the fountain, because what was said, this isn't an address to what's missing now that this hasn't been re-envisioned. It's always, stop at 78 cards, like, there's nothing that goes beyond the world, and I know we all know that that's not the case, right?
Right.
And
it's not linear, right?
It's not linear.
Yeah.
So what is it that we're adding that's lacking? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really ballsy thing to do after something's been around for a couple of decades, or centuries. And yet I think that people are receptive, because all kinds of tarot stuff, like Hello Kitty tarot, for example. You know what I mean? So, people are, I think, broken in somewhat. I don't know. So they're more, receptive when there's other
silly things going on. So this is good.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not in the same.
No, not at all. No, not at all. Right. I'm just trying to express that you get used to seeing different things, and so then when something that's actually different and relevant comes along, it's refreshing and it's a good thing. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I would really like to actually read the description of the fountain as it's almost going to appear in the book. It's on, it's almost there. But can I do that? Is that cool?
Yeah, you go for it.
When the fountain card shows up in your reading, relinquish all control and be quiet. The fountain exists outside the cycles of birth, death, time, and form. It represents the nameless, changeless source of which everything is a part. It is the waking from a dream, the dream of separateness and identity and recognition of oneself as not only connected to all things, but all things itself. You have shifted from observing and mastering life to being life, effortless and indistinguishable. You are the voice and the breath of the universes. And then we have, so that's the sort of intro, and then the meaning is oneness, a moment of cosmic clarity, fully awake, the end of seeking, an enlightened being, surrendering to that which you are, wholeness and perfection. And I wanted that when we're in the conversations about, so what is the contemporary climate like in this society that isn't being referenced at all in the tarot that we have now. And I think that, techno, for lack of a better word, the fact that we are all able at this moment in 4 different time zones to be communicating with one another and having the intangible be tangible, is just one tiny iota of this larger oneness that people I know are tapping into,
Right.
And I think as a creative, and when we were talking at the very beginning, why do anything creative except to make the world better? That is the place from which I think people need to start looking at the world in order for us to start treating each other better. That when I harm you, I harm myself because we're the same. And so this whole global and universal consciousness is how I think to bring people to that level, You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to feel for somebody you have never met on the other side of the world. Or an alien you didn't even know existed. Or the spirit that you are, in an indistinguishable amount of time from now. That is what the fountain is. And I'm super glad that we, that's our stamp. I don't know. Hopefully it'll just be like, okay, the next people that design a tarot deck, they're just going to have a fountain in there.
No, I love that. I think that's beautiful. And the name itself, evokes an opening. Yeah, just an opening and where it's, very freeing and effortless. And like I said, I feel like you've really captured that essence in the deck itself. Yeah, it's very powerful. And the fountain, the return to source, even as the water goes up,
Absolutely.
It goes down, and it's ever flowing.
It conjures so many images for me because not having read the description, but looking at the card.
Sure.
Fountains. It's like that eternal youth. It's what we all drink from. It brings us life. It's also endless possibilities because you toss your coin into the fountain and you open to the universe and say, I want this to happen. So it's a beautiful, beautiful image to have added to the deck, and it's going to resonate with so many people globally. Really.
Thank you.
I think this thing is going to take off and be huge.
I'm hoping so. I really am. I'm a no count your chickens before they're hatched. But Jonathan is an endless optimist, which is also what makes us all such a, and Jason somewhere, he's got the foot in both worlds, so it's also what makes us such a competent and amazing team, is that we're really all balancing each other's energies in that regard. And I'm saying, we got to make all that money, and he's saying, I hope Prada calls us,
Funny. So do you have a favorite tarot card? And why?
It's the moon, for sure. Because I'm a total night owl. And probably because I have a connection to the actual moon. But also, I've experienced some low-level psychic phenomena in terms of dreaming future states and things like that. And the moon card's really that juxtaposition between the fantasy and reality. And even in my waking life, I sometimes am like, is this real? Like, what is going on? Like, where am I? And not that I'm flighty, I'm really on top of it, but
right.
Say, what part of this heaviness is real? What part of this lightness is real? And I think, and the science part of it too, in terms of the moon always only showing one side to you, and how that's like a perfect perfect harmony with the orbit of the moon, and then it's a rotation, I think is so amazing because of the weight, like the actual mass of the moon, and the shape of it. So that that the other side exists, but you've never seen it, and it's about, say, suspending that disbelief, being in this reality. You can pinch yourself 1,000 times, and you still, even though that it's the other side of the moon is there, you may not. It's just a good analogy for my sort of psychic consciousness on the daily.
Yeah, the moon is one of my favorites also, and I think we might have the moon. Eric, can you put up the moon?
Yeah.
From the fountain, yeah, because this is just beautiful. This is one of the cards that really, in this deck, that really pulled me in. It's just so alive. It's like you can just see it moving before your eyes, and yet I love how it has those traditional elements in it, like Absolutely. The pillars and the dogs. It's just great. So, yeah.
We're actually offering a print of that along with the decks as one of the Kickstarter incentives. So if you want to get a moon print, I picked that. I said we have to make a moon print. It's
gorgeous.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I also liked, because it's a very new take, I thought the Knight of Wands was beautiful, because knights are, change, and we're all resistant to that sometimes.
Right.
But it's almost like, it looks like a dance, and it's moving with the flow of the universe freely and allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to learn to do, So, yeah, every card, though, the Six of Wands and Magician, they're all just absolutely gorgeous. I'm obviously going to be ordering this deck.
I am in love. I don't know who Jonathan used as the model for the Magician. I should also mention that most of the people, not all of them, but most of the people in the deck as are depicted, he got real models. I mean, they're models of people that we know that are part of the community in Denver, artists, writers, directors of museums, like you name it. It's kind of cool. And it was just purely by saying, hey, I'm working on this project, and every person that said, hey, that project sounds interesting, tell me more about it. That was all you needed to do. We said, hey, could we use your depiction as like this, and very specifically chosen for the tones of each one. But I think that's cool because it's a time capsule while also being timeless. Like this is a network, but if you never knew that they were actually real people, then it wouldn't matter. Also, Jonathan intentionally made everybody a little bit older, so I'm the High Priestess, but I look a lot older in the card.
I was going to ask you if there was a card that was like deeply personal for you if you were in the deck or if someone you knew was in or that was close to was in the deck. Oh yeah, the High Priestess.
It's the High Priestess, yeah. Yeah, there's I don't know. As the creative chameleon that you're talking about, I've always had like a serious dichotomy in terms of like, am I the fun, young, playful one, or am I the serious, like, diehard? You know. So I like duality. I told Jonathan, you can make me whatever you want. So he chose that for me. But it's very beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, well, I think that dichotomy certainly exists in the High Priestess, and then her wisdom is in knowing which one to be at different times, you know? Yeah. Yeah, fun and creative, but also serious and strong. So I love that. Yeah.
I did too.
That's great. So is there a card that you are most proud of or that the team is most proud of where it's just one that you really, really like?
I think we're all really proud of the Magician and really proud of the Empress. Jonathan really loves the Eight of Wands a lot.
That's one of my cards in the tarot. Yeah, it's just so
I mean, we haven't got, like... So he has been painting for 10 months straight. The paintings are like 10 by 8, I'd say, or a little bit less. 12 by 8. And he's got them, you can see them in the video, and a couple of stills, how he's got them set up. So when I visited and actually held them in my hands, he has about 60% of them done. But, you know, there's a month of time in between. Sometimes you might put a brushstroke down and have to wait for it to dry in oil painting. So it's this really long-term, like little bits at a time, very patient, very reflective process. And when you're living out in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, you can afford that much time to do that, which is what they did, which is super cool. But I only got to see the ones that you've seen, basically, finished. So it's still a surprise to me what happens now, you know? I only get to see it when he sends it to me via email and says, this one's finished. What do you think? And I say, he looks Cro-Magnon or something and fix his face or something like that. So it's been that part of it has been really collaborative. But in terms of him getting the imagery or him getting the description from Jason, from the research, he paints from there. And then I'm doing all of the external things to that, and I can put my input in terms of like, does this feel right with the description and the image that you've given me? But it's his creation in terms of each one of those actual paintings. He's painting that from the description that Jason gives him, and that's it. So I'm like the third voice on that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the Fool's going to be like.
Oh, it's good. It's real good.
That's the card from Dex for me that speaks to me.
Oh yeah, it's showing into your Fool ink.
Yeah, I've got a rather large Fool on there.
I don't know if you can fit it all into the frame. Oh, there it is. It's actually, I'm not going to give away the surprise, but I think it's one of the cards that we took a little bit more license on.
Oh, and that's fine. I love that.
That makes sense. That's totally the Fool. Yeah.
Yeah, the Fool.
I think that's great. Yeah.
It's interesting because my take on the Fool is different than a lot of people's. Because a lot of people think the Fool is, you know, an airhead and careless, and they don't look, and they're, you know. To me, the Fool is blessed and watched over by Spirit, and they know that. So they walk bravely through life with no fear and do crazy stuff that people are like, you can't do that. Oh, yeah, watch me.
They don't even say, oh, yeah, watch me. They just do it.
I'm off the cliff, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad for that. I know a lot of people really hold the Fool in high regard, obviously. I mean, it's like the source of it. And so, yeah, I know Jonathan so far has actually very much struggled with that one, so I can say that for certain. It's been difficult for him because it really does set the tone for everything you say. You know, there's this number of cards that you just don't want to disappoint anybody about, and that's one of them. Mm-hmm. The Tower is another one, and I'm in love with the Tower. I'm trying to convince Jonathan to give me the freaking Tower. I said, give me the Tower. I want the Tower in my house. I want it, like, on my wall, front and center.
Yeah, and the Tower is one of the ones I pulled, actually. So, Eric, I'm sure he'll have that one up there, for the show as we're discussing it. But, yeah, I love the Tower. I love what's been done.
Isn't it insanely amazing? Like, in a way that, like, I'm, like, looking at other ones... like other decks side by side, and the Tower has always seemed so evil to me, like really dooming, gloomy, like, and I hate to say that our deck is lighter, because I don't think it's lighter.
No, not at all.
It's not like, you know, death is like death. It's not, there's no coffin and skeleton. There's no, I mean, the occult, that sort of like occult flavor, I think we tried to sieve out of it a little bit. And say, like, this is about self-discovery and a tool for self-discovery, so, like, don't be afraid by any of this. And even these dark images, even though they could incorporate, like, yeah, maybe something really horrific is going to happen to you, that the image itself doesn't leave out the meaning that it's just about moving on from something, or it's just about, reordering some things and saying, like, oh, yeah, I have to kill my former self, say, or I have to stop thinking that bad thought to myself, or something like that, where it's actually really positive, generative, optimistic thing to get one of these darker cards. And I can't agree with Jonathan's depictions of those more, and the Tower being one of them. It has the eerie, brooding, strong, ominous, boulder-like, but it's not scary.
Right. And I love the Tower card because I feel like, you know, if I'm just walking by, and in so many depictions of the Tower, if I see that burning fire and bodies and, you know, the world is ending, it's the apocalypse, get the hell out of the way, you know, it's awful, I would run away. But when I see the Tower with the Fountain Tarot, it's like a vortex. I'm like, I stand there like in wonder, like, whoa, what is that? You know, where's it coming from? What's going on? Again, it pulls you in. Even the Tower
communicates the same thing, you know? Like when you're actually looking at the book and you're saying that here's the meaning of the Tower, it actually communicates the same thing. And I think there's just been a lot of literal interpretation, or just like maybe a little bit lazy interpretation of things being too direct and too edgy and saying like this is a dark card and this is a light card and that there's no spectrum, and that I don't think any one of these readers is stupid, and I think that they can understand a complex idea where something, say, feeds you and drowns you simultaneously. And so how best to depict that in tonality and in the shapes of things. I mean, Jonathan is a freaking magician. I said, you should have made yourself the magician, because for him to be able to communicate those things, and then Jason's description of each one of them is like, I don't know. I'm so totally impressed, and I'm on the team. You know?
When I looked at the Tower card, because I love it, it evoked a feeling, the same feeling that I get when I went to the Salvador Dali Museum and looked at his masterworks. Okay?
Okay.
Because it is so multi-layered, and you can get so many meanings from it, and there's dark, but there's light, and there's shadow, and it's just, it's beautiful. Now I'm getting goosebumps.
Look at that. Transcontinental goosebumps.
So, yes, Salvador Dali is what that evoked for me, and that is a huge compliment because he's like my all-time favorite painter.
We have a couple of contemporary painters that are backing it right now. Some pretty famous people, some directors of museums. I mean, that right there, I mean, is just like, we're doing something right. Like, that feels good from the artistic perspective, and Jonathan as a painter and his career, and me as a designer and my career, and Jonathan as a writer, but then to have come together and make this other thing that people have been doing for so long. And, you know, we're really new to this, and I am so humbled and so thankful and so gracious for the warm welcome that we've gotten from all. I mean, everybody has been so encouraging and like the right kind of critical, where it was like, hey, can you explain, you know, this part, or we'd love to see this, or, you know, be wary about this, or whatever it is, where it really feels like we've tapped into a global community across a bunch of different things in the art and the design, in the tarot. I mean, like, boom. It's overwhelming. I mean, last month has been crazy, and it is so cool. It is so cool.
I'm so glad that, you know,
go ahead,
I'm so glad we discovered you and we were able to like dive into the fountain, because I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah, go to the Kickstarter if anybody. If we've only got 8 days left.
Yeah, it's the final push here, and we will have all of those links up on the show website, tarottalk.com, and check out fountaintarot.com. Andi, what is next for the Fountain Tarot? What's next for you as an artist even? Is there something that you're working on?
What's next for me? I would love to do some international installation or something somewhere. I'm not positive. At this very moment, I'm redecorating my house. So you're only seeing one corner, and the rest of it has nothing in it. And it's kind of amazing. And I would say, here we are again, psychically. July and August is my like crazy time. I just should anticipate it every year, because it just happens like this every time. That there's a lot of change in the air. It's when you go through what's not working, and you get rid of what's not working, and you invite in what is working. And doing the Kickstarter this month, though incredibly like part of a totally crazy mix of things, is like the best thing that I could be focusing on right now. And it's just a really wonderful reminder that sometimes stuff just shows up in your life when you, even if it's challenging, to be the lesson to you, you know? Like, here's your opportunity to shine. Here's your opportunity to feel really in connectedness with a global community. Here is a really, really amazing opportunity for people to see your work, and that you're potentially introducing people to something that, I mean, if they've already been into tarot, that they would just appreciate it as much as the tarot that they have already, or more. And also to people that maybe have never experienced it at all, and that you're changing their lives for the better. Because I know that's how it's happened for me. So I guess my lesson right now is definitely embrace the change, go for the gold, you know, try everything once, be curious. What's next for the tarot is we got to make that money or it won't go to print, and then all of this will have been in vain. Well, maybe not so much in vain, because I still feel emotionally changed and wonderfully blessed by that. But I want to see it in my hands, and I want to see it in everybody else's hands, and that those already 292 backers from all over the world that have said, yes, we want to see this. We've only got $5,000 more to go on a $25,000 goal. And so the more the merrier. I mean, if you could just even come and give $5 to $10, that'd be fantastic. If you want to get a deck, it's only $40, but that comes with the 79 cards, a in-depth booklet with something on one card per page, so it's like really nice. A magnetic closing box that will just stay around for the ages, and there's a bunch of really other incredible incentives on that pledge page. So please, crossing my fingers.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the deck needs to be quality.
I did a real quick reading on the fountain and the outcome. I did 3 cards.
Okay.
Got the 2 of Pentacles, so I wouldn't worry about the money.
No.
Okay. I got the Ace of Swords, so that's great. That means you're going to figure out how to get that done and everything. And the outcome is the Justice card.
That's so powerful. That's cool.
Yep.
I like it. Yes.
So it's going to happen.
I believe you.
Well, it has to because I need the deck in my hand now. So.
Yeah, I know. For you to do this with the next... Which deck are you using right now?
Actually, I grabbed the Tarot of the Hidden Realm.
Wonderful.
Which is...
Okay, thank you guys so much. This has been so fantastic.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah, I know a lot of people are anticipating this deck, and it's gonna be a reality. It's gonna happen. I feel it. So, Andi, how can the viewers get in touch with you?
On my cell phone. 720-341-4151 if you just want to have a chat. That's fantastic. I love that. Actually, most of my work is purposefully not online because I have this sort of block for that. I say it's got a soul, and if you parse it out into 1 million views, it's lost its soul or something. But it's been a serious blessing for the fountain to have the Technoverse come online for it. For some reason, doing a collaboration, and it doesn't feel the same kind of like protected because I think it has to reach that many people instead of like one piece of art that only that one person owns and only they can see it. It's like everybody needs to see this art, everyone, everywhere, and it'll only keep getting stronger because of the connections between them. And that's sort of how I feel about it psychically. But yeah, give me a call. That'd be cool. I'm totally any time.
Well, Andi, thank you so much for coming on the show, and what you and Jonathan Size and Jason Gruhl have created is so special. Thank you for creating an opening with the fountain. So thank you so much for coming on. You can support the Fountain Tarot by going to fountaintarot.com and to the Fountain Tarot Kickstarter campaign page. On Kickstarter.com, the deck is in its last week of funding, so go show it some love. Go show it some support. So, Tim, how can the viewers get in touch with you?
You can always get me on Facebook at Timothy's Tarot, or if you're in the Dover, Delaware area, I do readings out of Bell Book and Candles, 678-4545. And this coming Sunday, we have our Pagan Pride, and I'll be doing readings all day.
Yes, so go check it out. Pagan Pride is the largest pagan festival on the East Coast, I believe. So if you're in the Dover, Delaware area, go check it out on the green. All right, and I'm your host, Rebecca Brown. You can get in touch with me by emailing the show, thetarottalkshow@gmail.com, and check out my blog, 365daysoftarot.com. Our word of the night was fountain. We said it so much. People are wasted right now. Do not drink and drive, people. We're all feeling really good. So that's all we have for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out our show website, thetarottalk.com, and access all of our archived episodes. Give us a like on Facebook. Tweet us on the Twitter. We are everywhere at this point. Next week, we are off because I'm going on a little vacation. So we'll be back in September just in time for our anniversary show. The show is going to be 1 year old next month. We are so excited. So join us next time, Monday nights, only on the Para Encounters Network, 7 p.m. Eastern. So mote it be.
So mote it be.
Creating stick figures and finger paint, basically. So, in fact, that's my next project. The Thumbprint Tarot is coming your way.
I'll back.
But it's just people who are passionate about tarot. You know, we value artists and what they really give to the language and system of tarot. And I know I'm always in awe of the artists and just how they create something out of nothing at all. So they really are the magicians in the tarot, I think. So it's always exciting to sit down with them and have a talk and for you especially, Annie, this is like a treat for me because it's not every day I get to sit down and talk with a fellow Coloradan. So I am super excited.
You actually grew up in Aurora. Where are you bouts from?
I grew up in Monument, Colorado. Yeah, halfway between Denver and the Springs, and I'm a CU alumni. I love Colorado. I miss Colorado. Yeah, so yeah, I think I read that somewhere. And then I went to fact check, and then I couldn't find it again. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So yeah, I'm like super excited about it. To sit down with a fellow Coloradan. So Andy, tell us about yourself, your work, your art.
It's a long story. I'll keep it as brief as possible. But CU, that's a super good place to start. How about? I went to school for advertising at CU Boulder, and it was a bit lacking, I say, after I got out of school, because advertising, even though it combines visual things with how people work, it sort of does it in this kind of skeezy way. I don't know. It makes you feel like you're lacking something in order to sell you something. And so I ended up starting my own business. I've always been into science and biology and digging things up in the yard and playing, doing fantasy games with my brother. And so the art that came, the reason that I got into art eventually was a lot about making the intangible tangible, ways of making it, making something visual to explain an idea. So that's specifically where I come from in art, and graphic design is a nice extension of that. But it's really so that I have an idea and I would say, I need to build this, or I want to show this to somebody, and art's is the best way to do that. So I mainly work for private schools in my business, among other things, but because I think that educating our kids is really important for, say, the next thing. Then our next generation of children is the society that we live in. So a lot of the thinking that I have around the design that I'm doing, or what I'm becoming involved in, is how do we make this world a better place? And that's why I'm so stoked about Kickstarter. And I mean, the internet, the fact that we're in 4 time zones right now is so cool, is because the technology has allowed us to take a life-changing idea and publish it in 5 seconds. So I'm
Talk show only on the Parrot Encounters Network. I'm your host, Rebecca Brown. It's a beautiful Monday evening here in the hills of Northern California. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Last week's show with mystic and teacher Heather Mandel, creator of the Zirkus Oracle, is now up and archived for your viewing pleasure, along with all of our shows, including our blog talk radio stuff. It's all up there on thetarottalk.com. So check it out. We had a great discussion on Kabbalah and the Tarot. And Heather is just one of those people who, when you're done talking to them, you feel so much better about life in general. So we just love her. And be sure to hop on over to our Facebook page and give it a like to keep up with the latest news and upcoming shows. And my sidekick is in the Tarot house with me tonight. He's my friend, my motivator, my moon in Libra, the stabilizing force to my crazy. He's everything to me. Tarot Tim is here. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Rebecca. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
It's been a crazy week, but really good, actually.
Yeah. Well, I know I did the 5 of Wands for you with last show, and it was just drama all across the board. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. That's good. So I am so excited for tonight's show because we are discussing the stunning and much anticipated The Fountain Tarot, currently in its final campaign week on Kickstarter.com. A little while ago, I got sucked into the black hole that is Twitter. But this time I'm actually really glad that I did, because I discovered all of these tweets about the Fountain Tarot, and I went to the site, fountaintarot.com. I checked out the campaign page on Kickstarter. I was absolutely blown away by this deck. I had to back it. I hope you do too. So joining us this evening is 1/3 of the Fountain Tarot team. She is a graphic designer, artist, creative chameleon, and designer of the Fountain Tarot, hailing from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado. Andi Todaro is here, everybody. Hey, Andi.
Hey, it's so nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me. I didn't actually know that you found out about us through Twitter. That's really cool. I love finding out how people have actually gotten hooked in.
Right, yeah, it's all over social media at this point. So yeah, it's just so great, and we will get into it. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. So, drinking game alert, my special guest won't know it, but anytime anyone says this word, take a sip from your Ace of Cups and drink as though you're at a Pentacles court card wedding and it's an open bar. That would be fun, right? I think of all the court cards, the Pentacles would have the best wine, for sure.
Probably. Unfortunately, we don't have any. We have coins, but it would still be just as big of a party.
Oh, absolutely. That's for sure. So we have had the privilege of having multiple artists on the show, and they are always so much fun to talk with. And thank God for the artists or readers like myself. We would be reduced to working with our own creations. So I would be
so jazzed right now about the possibility that any person, no matter where they're from, if they have an internet connection, I know that's still like a barrier for entry, but that you can get those ideas out there. So I guess mainly about me. I guess I could add the creative chameleon. I thought that was really neat. I hope that you put that on there.
Yeah, I put in your bio, right? That you're the creative. I was listening in your bio on the fountaintarot.com. That's creative chameleon. So you kind of do it all, I would imagine.
I try to do it all. The fine art, I've had 5 solo shows in fine art, and I'm not the artist of the Fountain Tarot. That's Jonathan Size, and the writer of the Fountain is Jason Gruel. But as an artist, I do a lot of geometry, and I investigate the relationships between math and science, so like frequencies of light versus frequencies of color versus frequencies of sound, and make these drawing machines. Like, it's a bunch of heady stuff, and there's a lot of course, super gray area, but my interest runs the gamut, from crocheting to modeling to photography to writing poetry to writing music. So, of course, I'm going to try and help make a tarot deck.
Right, and that's what I love about what you blend the graphic design with art, and it all works together. And I think that's so great, because I would imagine graphic design is very